Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Chapita, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Tvameva Vedya Dravinam, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Yata sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stithani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So where are we in our text?
I have us on 5051 on page 266.
Puneet, can you help us out, please?
Yeah. Satyabhavena drishtoyam deho deho bhavatyalam drishta sattva satyabhavena vyomatam yati dehakaha. Seen with the idea of reality, this body surely becomes the visible body. Seen with the idea of unreality, this body attains to the state of the sky or space. That is, it becomes insubstantial.
Yes. So we can look at these at a couple of levels. If we're talking about through Raja Yoga and we're acquiring a siddhi where you can dematerialize your body and teleport, what he's saying here, the physical body appears concrete because of the habit of lifetimes of thinking of itself. If we practice the meditation that it is immaterial, that it is a body of light, and there are esoteric practices to go do that if you wish. So that's one way of approaching this verse, but a far more useful way of approaching it. Again, going back to the three questions that this text is addressing. Who am I? What is this world? And how has it come about? Who am I? My essential nature. Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. My nature is bliss consciousness. I am Shiva. I am auspiciousness. What is this world? Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. This world is verily nothing but Brahman. Consciousness. How do the names and forms come about? By means of imagination. Sankalpa. So, So much implication in this verse. What we yogis want to do is understand I am not the body. I am the knower of the body. The physical body comes about in the same manner as the dream body. When you're dreaming, you have a dream body, which is a locus of perception. You look out at the dream world and you have a dream ego identified with it. And to the dreamer, the dream body seems real. It's only understood to be a product of my mind. When I wake up. Let me give you a personal example. Most of you know that I'm legally blind. I see perfectly in my dreams. I don't have any vision problems in my dream. I'm not fat, and I don't get tired running up and down hills. Do any of you have any sense of your dream body being somehow different than your waking state body? Just the way the mind projects it. So what we want to understand is that although it seems like a physical body, and it's born from my mother's womb and grows up, grows old and dies, it gets sick, etc. And we give it medicine and we exercise it and do all those sorts of things. Actually, it comes about by sankalpa. Now, the principal ramification of this, we've talked about this. It is my ideas, my deeply held sanskaras that create my experience of the body. Have we talked about Judge Thomas Troward in this class before? Yes, no?
Punjabi judge?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have
Yeah.
you? Anybody out there in Zoom land, do you know about him?
Yeah, you had mentioned him.
Well, just a quick review. He was a British judge in Punjab in the mid-19th century. I think he studied this text, but he wrote several very important works. The most well-known one are The Creative Process and the Individual and the Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science. He basically came back to Europe, to England, and lectured. It's dry as dust because it's very legalistic kind of language. But basically talks about how all of our conditions have their origins in deeply rooted beliefs. And we have a lot more freedom to change our experience of the world and our health. And he was a great influence in all the late 19th century, early 20th century New Thought teachers, metaphysicians. So we have like Louise Hay, Terry Cole Whitaker, earlier ones, you had Ernest Holmes, you had Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, the Unity School of Practical Christianity, all these incredible schools. And it's all based on the ideas that we've been getting in this chapter. So if the mind is dis-ease, past, it will tend to show up in the body eventually. Antithetically, as we let go of diseased thoughts, the body naturally starts to heal itself. Now, the Lord has sankalpas that we can't do anything about. In other words, you can do all the visualizations and affirmations in the world. You're not going to make light travel at a different speed. But you can, to an enormous degree, recreate your experience of the world. And when self-realization, when enlightenment dawns on the mind, the fundamental basic sankalpa shifts. So you take a man like Ramana Maharshi, so clearly knew his oneness with everyone and everything. So even the wild animals will come to him. So yogis will do magic and healing. I won't use the word magic. They'll do what appear to be miraculous things using gems and mantras and yantras. Christians go traipsing off to Lourdes or Fatima for healing. Indigenous peoples everywhere have various ways of healing that are not like our materia medica. What is the common point? It is the engendering of deeply rooted conviction, sankalpa. And that's where the power is. So what this chapter is saying is, don't have a sloppy mind. I like to say God answers every prayer, yes. But it's not, oh God, please, not that kind of prayer. If the basic texture of my mind is, I need to be afraid, and it's a scary world, and I'm going to fall through the cracks of life, and people are out to get me, and I've got to keep secrets. We're invoking a cosmic law. It goes, yes. That's how we see our world. If, on the other hand, through our direct experience, through our study, we get an intuitive sense, as the Hebrew psalmist says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. I live and move and have my being in thee, O Lord. However your mind wants to deal with those ideas, watch how your life will change. Let me tell you a true story. So back in the old-timey days, we're going back to years before I met Swamiji. I was involved with a new agey metaphysical group. We were learning how to do spiritual healing. One of the exercises had to do with bean sprouts. And so you have 3 pie tins. You get some mung beans or alfalfa seeds, whatever it is you want to sprout. And you soak the paper towels, you sprinkle the seeds or the beans on them, and you cover them with the paper towels. Did you ever sprouted things that way? I don't know if they do it now. They probably have machines for it. So what you do, 1 pi 10 is your control. 1 pi 10 you bless every day, your good seeds. You're aligned with life. You are loved. You're whole and you're perfect. Or as your mother used to say, you're the best. And the third one, you curse. With crappy seeds, you can't grow. Terrible. You deserve to die. And in a matter of weeks, watch what happens. Now, these are just dumbass seeds. What do you think happens when that kind of energy is directed towards children? Even more importantly, when those voices get internalized. Oh, why did I do that? I'm so stupid. How could I have possibly done that? Yogi begins to pay attention to the content of their mind, knowing that sankalpa is an intention. Now, let's talk a little bit about the sensations that go on when you make a sankalpa. It's not about willing things. Because there's no power opposed to it. The law of sankalpa is very simple. Any sankalpa consistently maintained that isn't contradicted or conflicted tends towards grossification. That's exactly what the scripture is saying. Think about what you want. What's good, what's loving, what's serving. Don't get caught up in catastrophizing, being full of fear. And the most powerful sankalpas are done when the mind is most quiet. And since Steve is going on to Vipassana meditation, I assume they've done it's called the metta meditation, isn't it?
Mhm.
Do you remember doing that at the end of the 10-day ones you've done?
Yeah.
What's the metta meditation? Remember the content?
The content of the meditation.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's very famous.
it's probably difficult to describe.
May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be happy. May all beings be liberated. That's basically the Buddhist thing. It may have a little bit different form. Is that what they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think they do it?
Can be a little bit difficult to describe.
Is it just ritual?
No, it's also a meditation that changes you on an individual level. I don't know that anything happens outside of me.
You don't know that. But according to Yoga Vasishtha, it does. Which is why Buddhists do it. And even if it just changes you, it is changing the world. You could think it's so much of a jerk.
A little bit.
Yeah. Now, the Tibetan Buddhists have all sorts of meditations that draw on this because they're a tantric Buddhist tradition. One of my favorite Buddhist meditations is Tonglen. I love it. What do? When you're aware of suffering, the awareness of suffering is an invitation to prayer. Why did the Lord make me aware of this? Oh, okay. At our earliest level, okay, it's unreal, so everything's all, but be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So what do? We don't fight or resist. Oh, I'm going to surround everything with white light. Get away. But no. You breathe in the suffering. You don't resist it. And then you breathe out the antidote. You breathe in the fear and the anxiety. Breathe out peace. You breathe in the pain of loss. And you breathe out peace. Knowledge that God is everywhere. You can frame it in your mind however works for you for each particular condition. It's a sankalpa. Now, who does more to change the world? People marching around the lake with protest signs, or a yogi on her asana, wishing the well-being of the world. Why? Because the body is nothing but vibration held together by thought. The mind is just a subtle body. And thought can change thought. The stuff, the mind stuff of the universe, prakriti, it's like clay. Form it. You are forming it all the time anyway. Just because it's a dream doesn't mean it has to be a nightmare, is the way I like to look at it. And all our basic tantric practices are based in this idea. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Anima Deepak Pad Praptao Bhavana Yukti Ridrishi Sulabha Cha Bhavat Yesha Yoga Sansiddhi Samvidam Evam Babhuva Chudala Dhanabhya Savati Sati. Such conception or contemplation is the means for the acquisition of the dignity of supernatural powers like animan or assuming minute forms. This becomes easy of attainment to the knowers of the accomplishment of yoga. Thus, the virtuous Chodala became possessed of intense or uninterrupted practice of yoga.
So she engages in these practices. How did all the negative thinking get in my head in the first place? Perception and repetition. Deep insight about the fundamental dreamlike nature of the world is the first step. And then habituated thought can be changed through repetition, abhyasa. So you do a particular kriya with the pranayama, with the visualizations, etc. And this is how the yogis acquire siddhis. But you can use it in a far more practical sense. If, for example, you have fear of financial insecurity, not an uncommon issue for modern people, especially with the environment we have now. It's just a thought. Spend a little bit of time dwelling on the truth. God is profligate. He doesn't make just one grain of sand. Doesn't make just one star or even one galaxy, one cell, one drop in the ocean. Anybody here ever grown a garden? Like a vegetable garden? You guys have done it a bit, haven't you? Many people who've been raised in an urban environment, they grow a garden for the first time, they're just astounded at how fecund the earth is. You know, how much food a little garden can produce. Do you have that experience? Yeah. The Lord's universe is abundant. There's enough. There's more than enough. There's always more than enough. And supply, abundance, money, however you want to, whatever word you use, is an energy that flows. It's not a possession that you have. If you're not careful, you get constipated energetically. No, hold on, no, hold on, no, hold on. It's all rooted in fear. There's so many things where you may have these attitudes that have come from families of origin, of the society in which we live, which are just an idea. That's all it is. You can change it. All right, next verse.
New section, section 5. Upadesha Prayojanam, the need for instruction. Viveda naiva rajatu tame vanguna shalini bahusho bodhyamanopi taya raja na buddhavan. But the king did not know her at all as endowed with such merit. Though taught repeatedly by her, the king did not understand.
So we're going back to our frame story. There's the king and his wife Chubala, and they both decide they want to become yogis. She's far more serious than he. So she not only attains self-realization, but then the desire for siddhis arose. So she practices this and she begins to acquire these siddhis, these powers. He doesn't get it. He's just a blockhead. Going on.
Upadesha kramo rama vyavastha matra palanam gyaptestu karanam shuddha shishya pragnaiva kevalam. Rama, the method or act of teaching, is the protecting or fostering of only the settled law in spiritual life. The cause of knowledge is only the pure intelligence of the disciple.
Yes. So this is kind of stilted in funny Sanskrit. What it's basically saying, I like the way Shankara puts it. Success in spiritual endeavors is entirely due to the degree of the qualifications of the fit student. If the instruction is to be fruitful, if the guru is to appear, it is because the student invokes it by being ready. How do we become a fit student? If you're having trouble in your sadhana, my suggestion, go back to that section of Viveka Chudamani and do a tune-up. It's like when you take your car to the garage and they tune it up, and they first of all they do a diagnosis. Oh, you've got a spark plug that isn't sparking. You've got a generator that isn't generating. So Viveka, how are you doing with your discrimination between the real and the unreal? Vairagya, how are you doing with your detachment from the world of the senses and your non-identification with a personal sense of self? The qualities of Shama, etc. Basically, can I keep my energy introverted and not be led around by the sense objects? Ooh. Can I have titiksha, forbearance? My karma will bring the thoughts of the past, but I don't have to reinfect the mind and keep the same thing going. Shraddha, my faith. Be earnest. Keep on keeping on. Samadhana. Keeping the mind still. You won't get this knowledge by trying to figure it out. What Shango calls the oscillation of the mind. And the fourth qualification, moksha. You have to really want it. You have to want it enough to give up attachment to the world. So it's always good to look at that. Well, where am I falling short? Am I getting sloppy in my discrimination? Am I letting my mind gush into the world in an uncontrolled way? Am I jonesing to try to get happiness from people, places, things, and conditions, thinking that's real? It's great to go back and review that. All right, next verse.
Shri Rama Uvacha Evam sthite mune bruhi katham etat jagat sthitau kramo gurupadeshakhyah swatmam jnanasya karanam. Shri Rama said, Sage, when it is so, tell me how, in such a situation in this world, the method called the instruction of the Guru or spiritual preceptor becomes the cause of one's knowledge of the self.
Yes, so if you've got a mind like a brick, the instruction is of no value. If you are ready, a rock will enlighten you. So let's see what Vasishtha says here.
Vasishtha Uvacha Atyanta Kripana Kaschet Patitam Vindha Jangale Ekam karotikam praptum sarvam trinatushadikam dinatrayam dudhavatha chintamani avandanyat evam karotikan veshat ratnam lambham akedina. Vasishtha said, a certain extremely poor person removed and searched all the grass, chaff, and the like for 3 days to obtain one shell that had fallen into the forest of the Vindhya mountain. Then he discovered the Chintamani, a precious gem. Thus, on account of the search for a shell, a gem was obtained by one without dejection of spirits.
So, very interesting story. So, Chintamani. This occurs in the literature. It means a wish-fulfilling gem. Well, this is better than a diamond or a ruby. So this fellow was looking for a piece of shell, pretty shell. And he comes upon this precious gem. Now, if he's smart, he'll quit looking for the shell and hang on to the gem. If he's ignorant, he's going to toss the gem and keep looking for the worthless shell. Let's see what this dude does. Going on.
Tatha shrutopadeshena swatmagyanam avapyate tattvasakyasya mahathasya praptau yadyapi karanam naguro kathanam sakshat tathapi karanam krama chinta manahi sampraptau yatha hetu karotika. So also, knowledge of oneself is obtained through the teaching that is heard from a spiritual preceptor. Though the Guru's communication is not directly the cause of the acquisition of the deep significance of this true principle, even then, it is the cause gradually, as for instance, the shell was the cause of the acquisition of the gem Chintamani.
Oh, okay. I see the import of the story. So he thinks what he wants is a precious piece of shell. And in that process, he finds something even more valuable. So what I want is the Guru. What I want is the teaching. That's like the shell. But as the result of the search, I find out who I am, which is the precious gem. Jesus called the pearl of great price. And there's a kind of a very interesting implication here. Nobody starts on the spiritual path with pure motives. My life doesn't work. Maybe a spirituality will fix it. I've had a death, family. I want to know the answers. Maybe spirituality will fix it. Had a business setback. Maybe spirituality will do it. Oh, I'm into health. I'm going to take a yoga class after Pilates and before my spin class. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the motivation is. Those are the shell. But if you keep at it, interesting thing happens. We think that spirituality is the biggest band-aid to fix my crazy life. Somewhere along the line, the whole thing goes, ooh. And you see my crazy life. As Ram Dass called it, grist for the mill. The way I work out my attachments, my aversions, for the Chintamani, the deep, wish fulfilling gem. Then everything in life becomes useful. There's no wasted experience. Always a teaching in it. And the teaching is always kind of reduced to basically one thing. Let go, keep your heart open. Next verse.
इति वशिष्ठ संग्रहे चूडाला प्रभावो नाम पंचविंश सर्गः. Thus ends the 25th chapter titled The Glory of Chudala in the abridgment of Yoga Vasishtha.
All right, next one.
Ch.25 Sargah, chapter 16. Sikshid Vaj Jayatah, the penance of Shikhi Dwajah. Section 1. Kanana Vasaha, the dwelling in the forest. Vasishtha Uvacha Rajat Magyana Hinastu Dukkena Pidito Bhrisham Dadao Atitaram Danam Tirthayatra Chakaracha. The king, Shikhidwaja, bereft of the knowledge of the self and very much oppressed by sorrow, gave away gifts exceedingly and undertook a pilgrimage.
So he is thinking that spiritual merit, punya, can be acquired by doing yajna, sacrifice. This will make him purer, and then he'll be happier. So he engages in a ritual where he gives away all his stuff. Going on.
Tapa Krishchadikam Chakre Natu Labdha Vishokata Chudalam Ekada Bhupa Roche Madhuraya Gira. He performed penance like bodily mortification, but freedom from sorrow was not obtained. Once the king told Chudala in sweet words as follows.
So again, he thinks that I can free spirit by beating up this nasty old body. I could just do mortification of the flesh, somehow going to free me. And yogis in the East and monastics in the West have been doing this for thousands of years. And the idea is based in an error that there's spirit, purusha, and it's trapped in nasty old matter, prakriti. And I got to beat up the prakriti to get the pure spirit out. It doesn't work. What it is, we go back to Shankara's great example of the snake and the rope. So because of my delusion, I see a snake when there's really a rope there. And I think the way to get rid of the snake is to get out a baseball bat. And I'm just going to beat the hell out of that snake. How's that going to work? Is it going to be effective? Why?
It's not a snake.
Yeah, no snake there. Now, the opposite doesn't work either. I keep smooching that snake. More drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Still don't see the rope, meaning our essential nature. So he's caught up in mortification of the flesh. Going on.
Muktam rajyam chiram kalam drishta vibhavabhuyamayah adhunasmin viragena yukto gacchami kananam. The kingdom was enjoyed by me for a long time. Situations of wealth or power have been seen by me. I am now endowed with indifference to worldly attachments. I shall go to the forest.
So this is an example of what I call phony renunciation. I assume he comes from a hereditary kingly family. So he's born into this job and he has a duty to do. Kings don't just ride around in fancy carriages and get drunk all the time. They have work to do as rulers. So what does he do? Oh, if I have a different situation in life, that's going to fix it. It's what in the 12-step traditions we call a geographic. Oh, I hate Los Angeles. It's just such a terrible place. The people are so shallow. I'm going to move to Chicago. But Chicago's terrible. You try San Francisco. It's more spiritual. So it's not where we are. It's not what we do. You're in the perfect right place you're supposed to be because your karma put you there. End is the means in a different form. Live a life of integrity. Live a life of non-attachment. Not poverty. It's not the same thing. Now, it may be your karma to be a sannyasi. Who's to say? But probably not right now. So he thinks he's going to find freedom. Oh, this horrible world. I can't go outside because the energy is too negative. That's what we do in modern times. I can't talk with those people. They're downers. See what happens. And I love this because what he does, if I remember the story right, he dumps all the responsibility onto his wife.
Rajat apyadikam manye sukham vananivasinam asmin sanmantre tanvi na vignam kartumarhasi bhavatya palayantyeha rajye sthatavyam uttame. I consider the happiness of forest dwellers as greater than even sovereignty. Delicate lady, in this right deliberation, pray do not cause an impediment. Excellent lady, you ought to remain here in the kingdom protecting it.
Yeah. So, wifey, you run the kingdom. I think it's going to be better in the forest. Forest dwellers have it better. So he leaves his world behind. He goes off to the forest, builds himself a nice little hut, and engages in his religious ritual. And he's being spiritual. Let's see what, and she's, of course, an internal sannyasi. All right, I can run a kingdom if that's what my karma is. Let's see what happens.
Ityuktva daitam raja यर्धा रात्रे विनर्गतः क्रमात् मन्दरशैलस्य तटस्थं काननं ययौ तत्रैकस्मिन् समे देशे जालयम्. Thus, having told his wife, the king departed at midnight. In due course, he went to a forest situated on the slope of the Mandara mountain. There, in an even place, he built an abode made of leaves or an hermitage.
So this is what he does. He runs away from the world thinking this is what's going to make him spiritual. Now, like Steve is going off to do a 30-day meditation retreat. That's laudable. If you're a serious yogi, there is nothing better than extended periods of meditation. But if you're going off to live in a Buddhist monastery because of your disappointment with the world, chances are after some time, the world will pull you back. And we have to see, there's nothing wrong for an extended period of time leaving the world to do sadhana. I certainly did. I lived in an ashram for 2.5 years. All right, going on.
Sarvam sampaditam tena yogyam tapa sakarmani sandhya purvam japam prata prahare satadakarot pushpochayam dvitiyetu snanam devarchanam tatah paschat vanyam phalam kischit uktva japya paro bhavat. Everything useful in the performance of religious penance was acquired by him. In the morning, in the 8th part of a day, that is a period of 3 hours, he did japa, or the repetition of sacred words, preceded by sandhya, or the prescribed morning prayers. In the second 8th part of the day, he did the gathering of flowers for worship, then bathing and the worship of the deity. Thereafter, having eaten fruit growing in the forest a little, he became absorbed in japa, or the repetition of sacred words.
So he becomes a religious person, gathering to himself all the things that he needs to do ritual. Now, there's nothing wrong with japa. Krishna calls it the king of yogas. But that's not the end point. There's nothing wrong with doing puja, offering flowers to a murti, or going to mass, or going to the synagogue. Nothing wrong with that. It's preliminary practice. It purifies the mind. But we don't want to confuse these means for purifying the mind with the end goal. So he is caught up in religious ritual. And of course, many religious people, they see some ascetic down the road and they're doing it differently. You're doing it wrong. You have the wrong kumbha, the wrong pot. You've got the wrong flowers. My murti, my Ishtadevata is more powerful than yours. All this nonsense that we get caught up. Going on.
Pure prabudhya chudala bhartra tyakta tikhibhihi vataranghrena nirgatya patim drishtva nyavartatat. In the city, Chudala, left by her husband, having woken up and extremely dejected in mind, going out through the opening in the air, that is, traveling through air by her yogic powers, returned after seeing her husband.
So she telepathically goes and checks on me. Is he okay? She's worried about it. So off she goes into the wild blue yonder. She checks him out and comes back. Let's see what happens.
Astam mamadhya gamanam kalenati charen nahi mayasya partha gantavyam iti nischintya satada kenachit karane nasau gata samprati bhupatihi iti praja samaschasya bhartu rajyam rarakshaya. Quote, let my going today remain as it is. Only after a very long time I ought to go near him. End quote. Thus having resolved, she then ruled her husband's kingdom, having consoled the subjects with the words, quote, due to some reason the king has gone out. End quote.
So she checks on him. He's okay. He's doing ritual. She comes back. She, even though she's a woman of knowledge, is a benevolent ruler and consoles the people. Doesn't upset them. Going on.
Section 2. Chudalaya Kumbha Rupa Grahanam.
Yes.
The assumption of the form of Kumbha by Chudala. Ashtadasha cha varshani gatanyaivam yada tada bhartu pascha maya gantu prapta kaloyam ityatha sanjitya mandaram vyonna gatva drishtva patim tada. When 18 years thus elapsed, then having thought, quote, the time has arrived for me to go near my husband, end quote, she went to Mandara mountain through the sky, and having seen her husband, thought as follows.
So what's going to happen? She knows him. She knows he doesn't have a very high opinion of women, intellectually and as spiritual beings. So she knows that if she shows up as wifey, he's not going to listen to her. So because she has these siddhis, these occult powers, she's going to change her form into that of a young Brahmin sage, shaved head, youthful boy body with the sacred thread, marks on his body, and with the name Kumbha. What does Kumbha mean?
Apart.
A pot. Yeah. Now, there's a wonderful significance in this. Shankara will go on and on and on. What is a pot? It's nothing but clay. The bowl, everything, pot. The body is nothing but a pot. You are like the space in the pot. Imagine a person carrying a great big clay pot around. Why are you carrying a big clay pot around? I'm not. That's me. I'm a pot. Well, it's very funny, basically. There's humor. So let's see what happens now. Kind of gave away part of the story.
Aho no vishamam maukhyam dardasham yat prasadatah evam vidha samayanti shastrartha darshinopihi tat avashyam ihadhyaiva tatvam sambodhayaminam baleyam mama kanteti maduktam na karishyati tasmat tapa vishe tasmat tapa saveshena bodhayami patim shana. Alas, what an odd folly it is, by the gift of which even those of such a kind who perceive the object of the scriptures indeed attain to this difficult state. Therefore, I shall certainly teach him the truth or reality here and now. He will not carry out my words, thinking, "This is a young woman and my wife. So I shall teach my husband in a moment in the guise of an ascetic." End quote.
Yes. So you and I frequently will read spiritual literature and we will focus on secondary points. I'm not only a vegan, I'm a breatharian. I only eat radish threads on Fridays. But all the people I'm pissed at, boy, could I give you a list. Oh, I'm very spiritual. I do puja every day. I drive all the way to Livermore to the temple. I take sacred baths all the time. We obsess about spiritual forms. This is what Ch.25 calls spiritual materialism. When the ego starts to own the spiritual path as another possession. And we miss the deepest import. Which is to give up all security. To just be open. So let's see, as she shows up as this young Brahmin ascetic, how she interacts with her husband. Sikkim Banja.
Iti sanchitya sadhyanat Dvijaputro babhuvaha Shulka yagnyo pavitanga Shulka ambara yugavritam Tam agastita tam agrasthitam alokya raja vachana abravit. Thus, having thought, she indeed became the son of a Brahmana by meditation. The king, seeing him standing in front, wearing the white sacred thread, the mark of a Brahmana, on his body and covered all around by a pair of white cloths, told him these words.
So he wouldn't listen to a mere woman, but a Brahmin. Oh, okay. Let's see.
Deva putro mahabhaga ko bhavan kuta agataha divasam saphalam manye yat tvam aghasmin drishtavan ityuktva padhyam ardhyadi datvantam sabravit. Son of a Brahmana, blessed one, who are you? Where from have you come? I consider this day fruitful since I have seen you today. End quote. To him who had offered the traditional honors like water for washing the feet and respectful offerings after having spoken thus, she said as follows.
So he's quite deferential. Oh, the guest is gone, especially if it's a holy person. He's caught up in all the ritual. We wash the feet. Going up.
Spitam rajyam samutrijya kananam sevyate tvaya shantena manasa sadho kachitte samhritam tapaha. Virtuous one, having abandoned a large or prosperous kingdom, a forest is resorted to by you with a calm mind. I trust your penance is full or concentrated.
So this Brahmana seems to be able to read his mind. Aha, I see you're a king, but you left your kingdom and you're doing penance in the forest. I hope it's been fruitful. I hope you've gained some peace. Let's see if it, in fact, it's worked. Going on.
Rajan me shrunuvattatam yatha prishtam tvayadhuna kadachit narada purvam guhayam dhyanamastitah akasmat leelaya nadyam kridantam lalanaganam alokayat tada tasya sahasaiva manomunehe anaschit vivekam sat babhuva nanditam sphurat. King, hear my history as inquired by you now. At some time formerly, sage Narada, seated in meditation in a cave, saw by chance a group of women sporting in the river playfully. Then, quite suddenly, the mind of the sage, not resorting to or practicing discrimination which is proper and palpitating within, became delighted.
So, a bunch of celestial ladies are bathing in the river, wet saris, cling to their bosoms. Narada is affected by it. Going on.
Ananda valite chitte kshubdhe prana nile sthite babhuva tasya tushtasya madana skhalitam tada. When the mind was drawn towards or covered by that delight, and when the vital wind or bioenergy was agitated, then to that gratified one there occurred the emission of vital energy due to passion.
So he was so turned on. Squirt. See what's happening. Going on.
Rajavacha, the king said, Tadrishopi paho kiyopi jivan muktopya saumunihi katham evam vidham bruhi prapto madanavashyamat. Even though that sage was like that, possessed of great knowledge and liberated while living, tell me how he came under the control of Cupid or passion of such kind.
Well, how is it? I thought he was a realized sage. I have this idea of perfection in my mind. How could he become under the influence of something as lowly as lust? And I think we'll stop the story here and finish it next week. A little on the raunchy side. It's okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Shishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om Tat Sat.